Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar, A Recipe for Outsourced Sales Success, brought to you by Demand Drive and Zenoss. My name is AJ Alonso. I'm here on the Demand Drive side of things, sort of half moderating this webinar, really acting as the patsy for moving the slides along. But I have a couple of amazing guests with me here today to talk about sort of the idea of outsourced sales success in Lindsay Fry and Trisha Fields. So I'll start with Lindsay. I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks, AJ. As AJ mentioned, I am the president and co-founder here at Demand Drive. We started the firm about 8.5 years ago, helping technology companies to build, manage, and scale successful sales development programs. So I'm really excited to be on this webinar today with Trisha Fields, who I will let introduce herself here in a moment, who's been a client of ours for about a year now. So Trisha, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, hi, this is Trisha Fields. I'm glad to be here today. I'm the Director of Marketing at Zenoss, who is a SaaS-based infrastructure monitoring company based in Austin. And I'm responsible for both marketing and the kind of sales development piece of taking something from a lead to opportunities. So that's how I kind of got engaged with working with Demand Drive. So.
Awesome. Well, just a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into the actual meat of the webinar here. This is pre-recorded, so you might be watching this the day after we set it up. You might be watching this a year from now, who knows. Watch it anytime, anywhere. And if you do have questions, you can feel free to reach us below. That logo is a clickable link. It'll send an email to myself, and then we'll have some other options for you later in the webinar. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into it right now and start off with a why. And we're going to turn it over to Lindsay to start.
Fantastic. Yeah, so today we're really going to be talking about, if you are considering outsourcing an aspect of your sales development, or maybe you're already doing that, how do you make this successful and how do you make a partnership successful? So I want to give a little bit of context here. In the for Zenoss specifically, they have set up a hybrid model with Demand Drive, which really means that they have an internal team that handles some elements of sales development and lead generation, but they also supplement and augment that team through a team here at Demand Drive, which over the last year or so has scaled up and scaled down. So I really, I'm excited to have Trisha here because she can really speak to why that model made sense for Zenoss specifically. What really was the impetus to look at firms like Demand Drive and why this has continued to work for them. So Trisha, maybe you can take a couple minutes just going into a little bit more detail around that.
Okay, sure. I think for us at Zenoss, initially we were really trying to kind of prove the value of, bringing a BDR team on board, whether that was going to be outsourced or something we were going to do internally. And so as we started conversations, we decided to start with an external model and really go ahead and really we wanted to make sure that initially it sat in the marketing group because we wanted to make sure that we had a team that we could kind of make sure was following up on all the leads and making sure that, they were kind of getting those 12 plus touches to kind of what it takes to kind of convert them to opportunities. So we started initially with kind of an outsourced team and then built an inside team as well. And that was really after we were able to kind of prove the value of what the outside team had done. But rather than just replace them with internally, we really decided that for us, kind of that hybrid model was made more sense and really kind of worked better with our business.
And can you go into a little bit more detail around why you think that model made sense for you specifically? Because we do have clients where they have it set up in a similar fashion, where they have both an internal team and they use Demand Drive as well. And then we have clients where they outsource all of their sales development to us. And certainly there's companies that set it up internally. So why do you think it specifically worked, for you? And maybe if you could give some insight into how you split up the function between, what your folks do in-house versus what we're helping you with.
Okay, sure. I think for one, it really allowed us to kind of scale up and down based on where we were with the business, and if for some reason we had someone turn over, internally, we were able to immediately add someone with demand drive. So, there was kind of no loss in our team when we were doing it with that hybrid model. Also, I think it allowed us to kind of utilize the demand drive team for maybe a special campaign or something that we wanted to test. It allowed us kind of that testing ground that I think then we could really learn from and decide, were we going to roll that out to the entire team, or, again, to kind of use that group to prove the value. And then also, we really did not look at demand drive versus the Zenoss team as two separate teams. We really looked at it as our, kind of sales development team, and made sure that, we made sure that they had Zenoss emails, that they were a part of all of our communication, that they worked inside of our tools. We really wanted to make sure that, again, it was kind of looked at as one team, and again, not so separate, if you will.
Yes, I think those are all really good points, and that probably touches on a lot of what you have maybe on the next slide, AJ, if you want to dig into a little bit more around that. And you bring up some great points, Trisha, and that is absolutely what, the two of us have seen, right? So, and that's the case for several of our clients who kind of move forward with a hybrid model. Inevitably, and 9 times out of 10, an SDR role is a role in which someone's in for 18 to 24 months. So there is inevitably turnover, whether you build that team in-house or you outsource it. So how do you mitigate the risk of that turnover, and how do you mitigate the risk in having your pipeline suffer because of that? So I think that you've been able to take advantage of, if you have turnover in-house, then we can scale up in pretty short order versus the length of time it might take for you or any of our other clients to open a rec and recruit and hire and onboard a new team member. So I think that's a great point as far as the flexibility in scaling up and down. And we can certainly, because we have a couple folks internally at Demand Drive that are assigned to the Zenoss team, we have some of that internal knowledge, right? So getting somebody trained and educated is a little bit easier. Anything else here on this slide, Trisha, that you want to go into a little more detail around?
Well, I think that the third one you hit on, as far as kind of level of expertise, and because we have a team at Demand Drive, it was a lot easier to go ahead and add another rep. And again, you guys seem to have a bench of folks that you could kind of add to that team, but they got the benefit of kind of working them with those more experienced people. So even though, again, it was outsourced, it still really worked well because you had some people on your team that were kind of, a consistent part of our sales development team.
Absolutely, and that also brings up a good point as far as, the team here at Demand Drive. Not only in this case with you folks, we have a couple of individuals on the team, but along with that, we have, 55, 60 plus SDRs, and I think growing every day, it seems, currently at Demand Drive, and all sitting together, and they can take advantage of, even though they may be on different programs, they can kind of hear what's working for somebody else and kind of take advantage of that and learn from each other, even if they are on different programs. So I think that's another benefit. If we could touch on a little bit, going back to what you had mentioned earlier, as you've really made us feel, and you've done a great job really making us an extension of your team. So it's not really, Demand Drive and Zenoss, and it's, us versus them. You have really made sure to include everybody, and we are all one team. And I think that's a key in order to make this a successful program, is when our clients look at our SDRs as a real part of their team, whether they have a team in-house or not. I think making sure that we feel included, like you said, Trisha, making sure we have, in this case, Zenoss email addresses, and making sure that we're included on all the internal meetings that you have, and even on-site sales kickoffs. Things like that really, really help to engage the SDRs and to make sure that we have a cohesive team and program. And I think too, with there being more and more remote workers, a lot of times, and I think I've seen this too with you folks, a lot of times the field sales team that our SDR support sometimes don't even know that we're not Zenoss employees, just because a lot of people are sitting remote and they don't know whether we're working out of the corporate headquarters or not.
Yeah, I actually think that's one of the greatest compliments when you get that from someone who says, oh, I had no idea they weren't just, they weren't an internal employee. Yeah. That means that we've done a good job of really making them be a part of the team and not feel like they are that kind of outsourced vendor, but really, just an extension.
And that's helpful for my team too. I know we were with you last week at your sales kickoff, and the guys were back this week really excited and engaged, and that gives them that extra confidence, right, when they can interact with your team in person, and I think that helps too, just build their product knowledge and again their confidence and their engagement in the program overall.
Yeah, I think the other thing I really think we benefit from is the fact that your team, they work on all different kinds of tools and technologies. And so sometimes too, when we've brought, a new tool to the group, chances are, someone else on one of your other projects has worked on that tool, or the manager that I work with at Demand Drive has been exposed to that. So I think it's really helped us get up to speed quickly on some of the, marketing and sales technology tools that we use. I think we have a great stack on both the sales and marketing side. Yep. But as we brought on new ones, I mean, your group is quick to kind of give us some of those benefits, or here's something that we did to take advantage of that tool and what made it work. And I think that's, again, helped us kind of scale faster.
Absolutely, and I think that, I know AJ just flipped to this next slide, and I think that speaks to bullet point number 2, really taking advantage of any expertise that we have, not only in what you were referring to, Trisha, where, your project manager may have experience with a specific sales enablement tool or marketing tool that we can leverage, or some different ideas around sales operations or sort of a strategy in which we can be most efficient, but also expertise around, what has worked when we're handling enterprise sales development, what's worked for other clients, what benchmarks can we share with you so that we know, that we're measuring the right things, that we're on the right track, that we, where do we need to iterate and where do we need to, change something if it's not working, if we're not seeing the right conversion rates or lead rates. That will help us diagnose problems that we definitely have seen before, so we can give you some guidance there. So hopefully, your project manager has been able to give you that guidance, not only maybe in the tech stack, but also just, what benchmarks have been across some of our other programs.
No, I think that's been very helpful also in setting realistic expectations on time it takes to ramp and when we'll see kind of someone who is kind of, optimized performance wise. I think you guys have been very helpful in kind of setting those industry benchmarks, which are helpful as we're selling a program internally.
Yeah, absolutely. And that definitely speaks to aligning those goals, and we'll continue to, remind our clients, okay, here's what is realistic, here's where, we should be. If we're trailing, here are the things that we're going to do in order to be successful. I know, AJ, in your third, we're not magicians, but we've definitely seen things work, we've seen what doesn't, and we sort of help to bring that to each of our programs. Anything else here on this slide, Trisha, that you want to speak to or point out? I think you covered a lot of it, but
I think a couple things that I think works well is if we're running an internal spiff or some kind of incentive, I was really able to work with you guys as an outside firm to kind of align those spiffs. Yep. So, if we were running something and people were going to get some kind of extra incentive, I knew that they were getting, I could talk about that very freely with the entire group because I knew that you were doing something similar on your side. So they're really able to participate in those programs. And I think that was important. The other thing I know is I've talked to some other people that have tried these models is on my side, kind of, in that marketing role is you've really got to make sure to invest the time. This isn't something to just kind of, set the outsourced team up and go. I mean, you really have to make sure that you are doing the check-ins and looking at metrics and looking at, the messaging and all the different pieces that go into kind of turning these leads into opportunities and just being very consistent with that. And I think, on both sides, being able to kind of adapt to changes and suggestions to make the program better.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I have, clients and prospects who are evaluating Demand Drive will often ask, what makes for the most successful programs? And I think you just touched on it. It's really where there's collaboration, there's communication, there's engagement on both sides, right? So if there's a company that's just interested in, okay, hey, we just need a company, we need a firm to call down a list and just go, it's not going to be set up for success, and yet that's really not taking that long-term view. So the fact that you've been engaged, you're there if we have questions, we're communicating on a weekly, sometimes daily basis, that's really, really helpful in making sure the team has what they need to be successful. So I think that's certainly a good point as well.
Well, that was definitely some awesome content from the two of you.
I'm sure we're forgetting things, but that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. I'll make sure to edit in post. So just to recap, we kind of went over what a hybrid model was. Lindsay and Trisha, you did a great job of explaining sort of how Zenoss works in capacity with Demand Drive and then internally with their own team, how it sort of should work within an organization, why you might consider it internally at your own company, and where you can go for help. And specifically that last point here, we'll bring to the last slide with questions. I know Trisha and Lindsay, you guys have both offered up your emails here. So if anyone does have any questions about sort of building out that hybrid model or really looking at an outsourced sales development function, they can reach out to either of the two of you for guidance and help in sort of setting that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, AJ. I appreciate that. And Trisha, anything else that you'd like to add? I know you said you were open to, fielding questions or inquiries from anyone that was interested in learning a little bit more about how you've set it up successfully. So definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, as marketers and sales leaders, we're always trying to figure out ways to do things better and faster and more efficiently. And learning from our peers is really a big part of it. So I'm definitely open to talk to someone if they're looking at this or exploring what does that look like, and kind of, share with you what we've learned along the way.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
And again, I'm happy to be a resource, even if someone just wants to run any questions or has any thoughts on how they can set it up effectively. I'm happy to speak to anyone that wants to reach out.
Fantastic. Well, Lindsay, Trisha, thank you guys again for hopping on today and sort of talking through this. Hopefully the audience has learned something. And again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
All right. Thanks so much, AJ. Thanks, Trisha.
Thank you.